3, 2, 1.
Hi, and welcome to another My Kids Locker Empathy Tale. This is Victoria Wolders, and I am going to share with you a brand new empathy tale. I'm very excited about this one. We're going to be talking about empathy, compassion, and shame, but we are going to be talking about them with 3 specific characters. Well, if you wanted to connect with me about my empathy tales, you can reach out to me at mykidslocker.com and through my social media outlets. I'm on Facebook, Pinterest, I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and those are just to name a few. Feel free to connect with me on iTunes and Google Play, as well as Spreaker. Those are where you can find my podcast. So let's get started. I hope that today we can create compassion one story at a time. And if you are comfortable, then I will begin. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in the Oak and Eagle Kingdom, there was a set of triplets. The set of triplets lived in the land of the Southern Eagle. These triplets were very special because one was named Emily, one was named Calm, and the other one was named Shaymus. They grew up in a cottage. They became well known among the villagers, and each of them were known for their virtue. Emily was nicknamed Emily of Empathy. Calm was named Calm of Compassion. And Shaymus was called Shaymus of Shame. The 2 sisters, Emily of Empathy and Calm of Compassion, both nurtured positive virtues, which was empathy and compassion. Yet the brother struggled with shame, and the villagers would call him Shaymus of Shame behind his back. Sometimes he would hear them, and he would get very angry. Shaymus didn't know how to overcome shame. Sometimes he would shame other people, not good, and he would actually get very angry at himself as well as others. He was a very lonely person. They all lived in a cottage far away from the local village. They often had to depend on each other. Their parents were away a lot of the time because they would often travel for work. They grew up in their understanding of their names. Emily of Empathy was always able to empathize and to feel what another person feels. Calm of Compassion could identify feelings of other people, yet she was never really able to truly feel what another person feels. Shaymus of Shame always was the one who blamed other people. He would often cast shame on other people. Now, one day, when all these 3 siblings were in their local village, they bumped into a wizard, and the wizard's name was Guilt. They began to talk. Guilt said, "I am a healthy form of shame. Guilt makes people feel bad because of what they did. Shame makes someone think that they are bad. Shaymus of Shame looked at the wizard Guilt and said, I need to understand you more because I live my life thinking that shame is the only way." The wizard asked if he could have dinner with them, and they said yes. They went back to the cottage, and they were all sitting down at the table. Guilt, the wizard, looked at Calm of Compassion, and Emily of Empathy. He said, "It is difficult to live with your brother, Shaymus of Shame." They said, "Yes, it is. Often when we do, he will often tell us that we are bad people, or he'll tell us that we're not worthy of doing something. We often think that we don't deserve much. In my perspective, if I do something bad, I really shouldn't be the bad person. It's the action," said Emily of Empathy. Shaymus of Shame said, "Well, how am I going to cure myself? This is the name I've been given, and I look at life through the eyes of someone who is shaming another person. This is just who I am. It makes me so angry." The wizard Guilt said, "I have mercy on you, and I believe that Emily of Empathy and Calm of Compassion can teach you about how to overcome your shame. I think you will be able to be renamed after you have done this special thing." Shaymus of Shame said, "Well, how do I get renamed?" The wizard Guilt responded, "Well, what I'd like you to do is every time you think of yourself as being a bad person or not worthy of something, I would like you, all of you, to go to the raging river, and I'd like you to pick up one large stone and throw it into the raging river, all at the same place." He said, "Every time something bad happens and you want to shame yourself and you think you're a bad person, I want you to take a stone and throw it in the raging river. Don't forget to do that." The wizard then looked at Emily of Empathy and Calm of Compassion and said, "You must do this with your brother. All three of you have to do this together." They looked at each other and said, "Really? Should we really do this?" The wizard Guilt said, "Yes, you should. Your brother needs healing. He needs his name changed from shame to something that is liberating. The only way for him to do this is for him to throw a stone in the river." Emily of Empathy looked at the others and said, "Yes, let's do this together." The wizard left, and the children went to sleep. The next day, all three of them were walking through the village. There were some children playing. The children started laughing at how the three siblings looked. Shame looked at the children and said, "Yes, I am good enough. Please do not make fun of myself and my sisters." Empathy looked at the children and said, "These children are poor. Their parents have hurt them deeply, and we need to understand them." Calm of Compassion looked at the children and said, "I don't understand your ways, but I will choose to love you anyways." All three of them took up a large stone and walked toward the raging river and threw it in. The next day, they were walking along the road, and they met some merchants, and the merchants stopped and said to them, "All three of you are poor and ugly. You are not worth anything." Shaymus of Shame looked at the merchants and said, "I will choose to forgive you, even though it's very hard for me to do that right now." Emily of Empathy looked at the merchant and said, "We need to know that you all came from very poor families. You are making fun of our clothing because you have felt that pain as well. You think now because you have money that it makes you feel better to make fun of other wealthy clothing like yourselves. I will empathize with you, and I will feel your pain, and I will forgive you. Calm of Compassion looked at the merchants and said, I do not understand why you talk to us this way, but I do know that in your heart you are kind, and that sometimes you may not use words that we understand. That your intent is to make yourself feel better, but you are perceived as hurting us because you are making fun of our clothes. Despite your hurting words, I will choose to be kind to you because that is what we need to do. All 3 siblings walked away from the merchants, and they each picked up a large stone. They walked to the raging river and threw it in. Every day, they happened to meet at least one person who either hurt them with their words or hurt them with their facial expressions, or perhaps ignored them. The people chose to be unkind, and what happened was all 3 of them decided to look at the incident in a different perspective, in a perspective that was loving, that was caring. Most of all, Emily of Empathy, Calm of Compassion, and Shaymus of Shame all began to love deeper. Over time, they realized that the stones that were forming in the raging river were building a bridge to the other side. As the months went by, they realized they could finish the stone bridge with the stones that they had thrown. They noticed that this bridge led right to a beautiful oak tree on the other side of the raging river. One day, they were finally able to walk across the raging river to the other side because of the stones they had thrown in the river. And they looked up at the oak tree. As they looked up at the oak tree, they noticed the sun gleaming through and how beautiful it was. Just at that very moment, the wizard guilt came and said, Thank you for taking the time to show to those people around you what it means to be empathetic and compassionate, and to overcome shame with your thoughts and words. He looked at the brother Shaymus of Shame and said, You will now be named Forgiveness. You no longer will be Shaymus of Shame, but you will be named after the love, care, and kindness you chose to show. All 3 of them looked at the wizard and gave each other a hug, and knew from that day forward that whenever they'd come across a situation where someone was unkind to them, they would use empathy, compassion, and forgiveness. Together, they learned what it meant to overcome shame and to build a bridge across the raging river in the Oak and Eagle Kingdom, but the raging river of emotions and hurt. Together, they learned about empathy, compassion, and forgiveness. The end. Well, thank you so much for joining us again today for an empathy tale, creating compassion one story at a time. I hope today you would be able to think a little bit about how people in your life may have hurt you. I know for me, sometimes I've had people say things to me, and my perception is that they are wanting to hurt me when really their intent wasn't that. Sometimes people would like control in their life, and they use hard words or they use their bodies to hurt people. Sometimes what we can do is the best thing is to forgive them and to somehow find it in our hearts to connect with them in a deeper level, feel their hurt, feel their pain, and somehow be able to care for them in a deeper way. Because one day, we too might be in their shoes where we feel that we need to hurt someone with our words, and we would hope that other people would be able to forgive us. Well, thank you so much for listening to us and our stories about the children of Emily of empathy, and Calm of compassion, and Shaymus of shame, which then changed his name to forgiveness. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you go away from the story and you too will be able to create compassion, one story at a time. This is Victoria Wolders signing off from another empathy tale. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
3, 2, 1, action!